Hey folks, it's Saturday, and that means you get to hear me talk about an episode of a superhero animated television series. And today I am talking about the two-part premiere of Batman Beyond. You guys may not know this about me, but this is actually my favorite of all of the DC animated universe cartoons, and if I'm being honest, it's probably my favorite superhero cartoon period. But having said that, I still want to apply the same level of critical reviewage to this show as I did to Young Justice, or Legion of Superheroes, or any other show that I might not like. To that end, I'll be trying my best not to let my bias get in the way of me talking about what works and what doesn't work in this series. And before I get into the actual review, as always, I spoil stuff when I talk about these shows. If you still want to go and watch these episodes, you have your chance now. On the other hand, if you have seen these episodes, but it's been a while, then the next minute or so is going to be a good opportunity where you can allow me summing up the plot of these episodes to refresh your memory. The episode begins some 20 to 25 years in the future, where a rich heiress has been kidnapped. Batman, sporting a snazzy, technologically advanced new suit, comes in to save the day. But he's getting older, and while laying the beat down on the kidnappers, he has a heart attack. In an effort to keep his attackers from beating him to death, Batman pulls a gun on them. The day can mostly be classified as a victory, as the girl was saved and the bad guys were arrested. But Batman is disgusted with himself for resorting to pulling a gun on a thug, and he shuts down operations as Batman. Cut forward another 20 to 25 years, now we cut to young Terry McGinnis. He has a fairly typical life. His parents are divorced, he doesn't get along with his dad, he gets picked on by the jock at school, though to differentiate this kid from the Peter Parkers of the world, he can at least give as good as he gets, both verbally and physically. He has a girlfriend named Dana. Life is pretty normal for him. Meanwhile, his father works for Wayne Powers, the company that once belonged to Bruce Wayne. Derek Powers, sorta a futuristic version of Lex Luthor, is making a deadly nerve gas and is planning to sell it to a third world country's dictator. One of Warren McGinnis' co-workers was caught in the middle of this very illegal stuff and was killed for it, but not before dragging Warren into it. Then Warren gets killed for knowing too much. Terry eventually finds out about the illegal goings-on and brings it to the attention of Bruce Wayne, whose life he saved earlier that week. Wayne is very adamant that if Derek Powers is going to be taken down, it will be by the police. Terry reluctantly agrees until Derek Powers confronts him and steals the information that Terry has on the nerve gas. So Terry steals the fancy batsuit to go take matters into his own hands. After some strong, harsh words from Bruce Wayne, Terry soon has an ally in Wayne, and while he is unable to bring Powers to justice, he is able to stop the shipment from going out to the buyers. The man who killed Terry's father meets an unfortunate end, and Derek Powers is mutated into a glowing Dr. Phosphorus-type character. The episode ends with Bruce taking Terry on as an apprentice, where Bruce will mentor Terry in the ways of the Bat. As far as origin stories go, this one is pretty good. It covers about as much ground in just 40 minutes as most cinematic origin stories can cover in 2 hours, so it's concise and tells the story in a very economic fashion. But that's to be expected with the crew behind this series. I have to say, as far as Terry's origin being a mirror for Bruce's, I'm glad that they didn't feel the need to just completely recycle Bruce's origin. Terry's circumstances are just similar enough that Bruce will see a little of himself in this guy, but he's different enough that we don't have 2 copies of the exact same character, which would make for some pretty boring stories if I don't mind saying so. For instance, Terry is already in high school when his dad dies. We don't even really know how old Terry is, I don't think, but he's probably 16 or 17, almost a full-grown man. Terry is certainly affected by his father's death, but not in the same way that an 8-year-old kid would be affected by the death of both of his parents. And while we're on that, I really like that Terry's still got a family left. He has a mom and a younger brother. Now, admittedly, they don't really play a part in this series at all. We only ever get to see them at the beginning and end of some episodes, and we never really get a sense of who these people are. But in the same way that while Tim Drake was first introduced in the comics, he had a parent who is still alive, I like that Terry's family still being a part of his life does 2 things for our protagonist. 1, it keeps him from becoming a clone of Bruce, which I already mentioned is a good thing. And 2, it doesn't make things too easy for him. When a character has no family left, being a superhero is a lot easier to pull off. Just look at all of the heroic archetype characters from fiction who couldn't be heroes unless they lost their parents. Peter Parker, Bruce Wayne, Luke Skywalker, etc. Keeping Terry's mom and brother in the picture just adds another level of difficulty to Terry's life, so that's a nice little twist on the Batman formula. Although we don't really see that in play a whole lot in this series, with the exception of the drug episode. Beyond that, what else do we have in this episode? I, for one, was a big fan of the corporate-type villains that this series had. I thought it was a good way to further separate this version of Batman from the previous, and I also feel like some of the best villains this series had came from the corporate side of things. I have talked about this before, but it is a real shame that after this season, both the network and the people making the show felt that they needed to focus more on high school-centric stories and villains. Much as I did like everything that these two episodes set up, there are a few things that I don't really like. I get that this episode needs to set up Terry as the new Batman, so he has to do things that might not necessarily make sense in order to end the episode as Batman. But why exactly is Terry so against the police moving in on Derek Powers? Much later in this series, we find out that Terry was a juvenile delinquent, but that doesn't really excuse him for not wanting the police to get Powers, does it? Let's look at the course of action that Terry does take versus the course of action that he could have taken. He does put on a costume, taking the law into his own hands, effectively ruining any chance for Powers to actually do prison time. Now sure, Powers is rich and could probably afford great lawyers who could get him back out of jail 10 minutes after he's put in, even when selling germ weapons to third world countries. But surely the police could do something, right? More than what Batman does anyway. Because much as it might be cathartic to punch these guys, at the end of the day, Powers still gets away scot-free. Which is less likely to happen if Terry had just called the police as soon as Powers ambushed him. But like I said, I am willing to let characters acting a little stupid slide in this case, since we need Terry to become Batman, and this is really the only way that it can happen. The other big thing that I had a problem with in this two-parter also happened in the second part. After Terry steals the Batsuit, Wayne talks to him over the comlink, and after asking a few times for Terry to return the suit, Terry says no. Then Wayne turns off the suit, effectively paralyzing Terry. Then these armored thugs start beating Terry, and Bruce just sits there and listens. It's only when Terry is about to be murdered with a gun that Bruce lets him fight back. But seriously, Bruce, are you a psychopath or something? I get that the kid stole your suit, I get that you want it back, but how is letting him get beaten to death going to make things okay? And then after escaping that scene, Terry convinces Bruce to let him go after the weapons shipment. Terry goes straight for the groin and compares his own situation to Bruce's and says that this is his only chance to nail the guy who killed his dad. His exact word is nail, as in kill the guy. And Bruce is okay with that. Now, to be fair, later Terry approaches Powers and Mr. Fix and says that Fix is going to jail, so he doesn't intend to kill Fix despite what happens later in the episode. But Wayne doesn't know that. Based on Terry's word choice, Bruce could have easily been forgiven for thinking that Terry was going out to murder the dude who murdered his dad. Just seems like a situation where they could have changed what Terry said, or had Bruce have a line about no killing or something like that. Overall, this is not a bad two-parter. What problems I did have with it can mostly be forgiven, since this is the pilot and needs to set up the rest of the series. I don't usually grade these, but if I was going to grade this one, I would say it's either an 8 or an 8.5 out of 10. What did you guys think? Did you guys like the two-part Batman Beyond premiere? Did you guys like my review? If so, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And if you did like this video, tune in a week from today when I will be talking about an episode of Batman the Animated Series. And the week after that, I will be talking about another episode of Batman Beyond. And throughout the week, I'll have different kinds of videos up for you guys, so be sure to check those out every day. Until then, I'll see you guys later. Have a good one.